I can't breathe. Help me, please. Someone, please save me.
Meet John Edward Jones. He is 26 years old, a medical student, a loving husband, and a father to a 1-year-old daughter. He has his whole life ahead of him, a medical career, raising children, growing old with grandchildren. John came to Utah for Thanksgiving to visit family. He loved adventure. As a child, he and his brother Josh often explored caves. They decided to relive their youth and head to the popular Nutty Putty cave. It was supposed to be a fun family adventure before dinner. No one knew this decision would be fatal. Nutty Putty Cave is famous for its narrow passages with funny names like the birth canal. To get through, you have to exhale, squeeze, and crawl. John found an opening he thought was that passage. He went in head first. He moved by pushing with his hips, his fingers wiggling like a worm. But the passage got narrower and narrower. And, most terrifyingly, it started to angle sharply downward. At some point, John realized he couldn't go any further. But when he tried to back up, gravity played a cruel joke. He slid into a narrow slit measuring 10 by 18 inches. That's the size of a washing machine door. One arm was pinned underneath him, the other thrown back. Every time he inhaled, his chest expanded and wedged him tighter against the rock. He was trapped at a 70-degree angle, upside down, in total darkness, in total silence. What happens to the body in this position? Your heart isn't designed to pump blood against gravity for that long. Fluid starts to pool in the lungs and brain. Pressure in the skull rises. Eyes fill with blood. John started passing out, then waking up. His brother found him first but couldn't pull him out by his legs. Rescuers were called. The operation had been going on for 12 hours. John was still joking and hoping to get back to his wife. Over 100 rescuers arrived. The only chance was a system of pulleys and ropes. They anchored pulleys into the cave roof. They started pulling. It was working. They lifted John enough that he could make eye contact with a rescuer named Susie. He said, "Thanks guys, I'll see my family soon." But the cave didn't want to let him go. The stone arch holding the pulley couldn't take the load. It shattered. The pulley hit a rescuer in the face, and John plummeted back into the same crevice, but now even deeper. It was the end. Physically and mentally, the rescuers were exhausted. John's heart gave out after 27 hours of captivity. Retrieving his body without breaking bones and risking others' lives was impossible. The family made a difficult decision. Nutty Putty Cave was closed forever. The entrance was filled with concrete. This cave became his mausoleum. John Jones remains there eternally, in the silence of the earth, reminding us how fragile life is and how one wrong turn can change everything. Second story. Meet Hisashi Ouchi. 35 years old, a regular worker at a nuclear plant in Tokaimura, Japan. He wasn't an evil genius or a mad scientist. He was a simple guy who trusted his bosses. He had a wife and a young son. On that day, September 30th, 1999, they were behind schedule. Management said, "Hey, let's speed this up." Instead of complex automation, they decided to mix enriched uranium manually in regular stainless steel buckets, like they were mixing paint for a renovation. Hisashi stood right over the tank, holding a funnel. At some point, the uranium mass reached criticality. A blinding blue light flashed in the room. This was Cherenkov radiation, a sign that the air itself had started glowing from radiation. There was no explosion, no sound. But in that nanosecond, enough neutrons passed through Hisashi's body to kill him several times. Over. It was a death sentence executed instantly, but with delayed pain. When he arrived at the hospital, he looked almost healthy, a bit sunburned, a bit nauseous. Doctors thought maybe he'll be okay, but when they looked at his blood under a microscope, they were horrified. Hisashi's chromosomes were obliterated. They were shattered into pieces. Chromosomes are the blueprints of life. Without them, cells don't know how to divide or repair. Hisashi's body stopped creating new cells. He became a biological walking dead man who could still speak and think. Hell began. Mucous membranes vanished. Skin started peeling off. Doctors used medical tape, but when they removed it, the skin came with it. He was losing up to 20 liters of fluid a day. Muscles began separating from bones. And through it all, he remained conscious. He felt everything. He screamed, "I can't take it anymore. I'm not a guinea pig." But the family begged doctors to do something, and doctors continued to keep him alive, turning treatment into sophisticated torture. On day 59, his heart stopped. It was his chance to go. But doctors resuscitated him. The heart stopped again. They restarted it. 3 times in an hour. They pumped, stem cells into him, grafted skin, hooked him up to ventilators. It was a science experiment. How long can a body live without DNA? The answer, 83 days. In the end, on December 21st, his organs failed completely. Hisashi Ouchi died, having endured the longest and most painful radiation death in history. His story is a reminder not only of atomic danger, but of medical ethics. Sometimes letting a person go is the most merciful act you can perform. Third story. Meet the working-class elite, deep-sea divers. They work on the Byford Dolphin oil rig in the North Sea. The job is dangerous, but it pays a fortune. These guys are saturation divers. This means they live under immense pressure for weeks. They breathe a mixture of helium and oxygen, which makes their voices sound like Donald Duck. It seems funny, but the reality is deadly serious. The divers live in a pressure chamber. The pressure there is 9 atmospheres. It's like having a truck constantly pressing on you. To get out, they have to go through an airlock and connect to a diving bell. It's a complex procedure. On November 5th, 1983, 4 divers were returning from a shift. They entered the chamber, took off their suits, and were getting ready to rest. Outside were 2 technicians, William and his partner. Everything was supposed to go by protocol, but a communication error occurred. Maybe noise, maybe fatigue. One of the technicians outside decided the hatch was already sealed and opened the clamp holding the diving bell docked to the chamber. This was equivalent to opening an airplane door at 30,000 feet, only hundreds of times worse. Explosive decompression occurred. The pressure dropped from 9 atmospheres to 1 atmosphere in a split second. The gas inside the divers' bodies expanded instantly. Imagine a soda can shaken violently and popped open, only instead of soda, blood and organs. 3 divers died instantly. Their blood literally boiled in their veins. The fats in their bodies solidified. But the most terrible fate awaited the 4th diver, Tracy. Tracy was standing right by the slightly open hatch. When the pressure dropped, the air from the chamber rushed out through a gap only 24 inches wide. Tracy was sucked into this gap. Physics was merciless. His body was forced through this opening. The autopsy showed what doctors called complete disintegration. Organs, skeleton, everything was ejected out onto the ship's deck. This was the quickest death on our list. The speed of destruction was faster than the speed of a nerve impulse. Tracy died before his brain could register what was happening. He felt no pain. He simply ceased to exist. The company tried to blame the divers for years, but eventually admitted that outdated equipment was at fault. The lesson is simple. The laws of physics cannot be broken, and they do not forgive mistakes. 4th story. Let's travel back to the Roaring 20s, an era of jazz, champagne, and complete scientific illiteracy. Meet Eben Byers, 47 years old, son of a steel tycoon, socialite, golf champion, and ladies' man. He had everything: money, fame, and health. But in 1927, he fell from a berth on a train and injured his arm. The arm hurt, affecting his golf game and his love life. Doctors of that time didn't offer him ibuprofen. They offered him magic. The doctor prescribed a trendy new medicine, Radithor. It was simply distilled water laced with radium. Back then, radium was considered a miracle. Cure. It was added to toothpaste, chocolate, and cosmetics. People believed radiation charged cells with energy. Eben drank the first bottle. The placebo effect kicked in instantly. He felt a surge of energy, or so he thought. He decided he had found the elixir of immortality, and he started drinking it like soda. Eben didn't just cure his arm, he became a Radithor fanatic. He drank 3 bottles a day. He sent cases to friends, gave it to his horses. Over 3 years, he drank 1,400 bottles. That is a massive dose of radiation. In modern terms, he was voluntarily swallowing a nuclear reactor 1 teaspoon at a time. Radium has a nasty property. The body mistakes it for calcium. Instead of being excreted, the radium settled in his bones, replacing strength with radioactivity. In 1930, the fairy tale ended. Eben started losing weight. He got terrible headaches, but the horror started with his teeth. One day, a tooth simply fell out. No pain, no blood. The nerves in his jaw were already dead, burned by radiation. Then a second one fell out. A third, his jawbone became soft, like a sponge. The tissue started dying and rotting right inside inside his mouth. It is called radium jaw. Authorities launched an investigation against the maker of Radithor. A lawyer visited Eben to take a statement because Eben was too weak to come to court. What the lawyer saw haunted him forever. Eben Byers no longer had a lower jaw. It had literally disintegrated. He had holes in his skull through which his brain was visible. He couldn't speak. He couldn't eat. But his mind was clear. He was trapped in a crumbling body. Eben died on March 31st, 1932. Official cause of death: radiation poisoning. His body was so radioactive that he had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin to avoid contaminating the cemetery. The creepiest part? When he was exhumed for study 30 years later. In 1965, he was still hot. Radium's half-life is 1,600 years. Eben Byers will remain dangerous for another millennium and a half. Rest in peace, Eben, and thanks for the warning.